Hi, my group members and I are going to take you through the proper way to take alginate impressions. Our group members consist of Jill, Chris, Christina, Courtney, and Alexandria Gomez. We're going to go ahead and start by placing on our proper PPE. This is important to keep ourselves and our patients safe. We want to make sure that we have a gown, a mask, safety glasses, a shield, a bonnet, and of course gloves. And you also want to make sure that your hair is pulled back. So first we start off by having our patient wash their hands before we seat them in our chair. This is important, especially in today's day and even before. Then we have them rinse with our Listerine to make sure that there is not a lot of bacteria in the patient's mouth before we treat them. And so we go ahead and have them do that before they sit down. Here we have our clinician in her anatomical position and her proper PPE. Here we have all of our supplies. We have our adhesion spray. We have our mixing bowl, spatula, our trays, and our alginate. And we first start off by measuring some water. So we take our measuring cup and we want to make sure that it is cool water, because warm water will make the setting time of the alginate a faster setting time, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure it's cool water, and we want to fill it to the top of our line that we have here. So we go ahead and do that, and now we are testing out the size of the trays. So we do that by placing a headrest cover or saran wrap around the tray, just in case the size is too big or small and we don't want to waste our tray. So now we are trying on the maxillary tray, and this tray was actually too small, so we had our assistant Christina help us out and place a new tray in there so that we didn't waste any material. And now we are testing out this size, and we know that this fits because it fits around her back molar. And after we find the proper tray, you would have your patient bite onto the bite wax and place it into warm water. We didn't have any in our perio, so we skipped that part, but that's when you would do that. Then you go ahead and spray adhesion spray onto the tray, and then we fluff our alginate before we place it in. And we always start by pouring in our water and then our alginate. These packets can be kind of tricky to open, so scissors are important as well to have with you, so it makes it go a little quicker. And once we get that open, we pour it in and we start mixing with our spatula until we get a homogeneous mixture. We want to make sure that there's no clumps of powder left and that it's all smooth. So we will mix against the side of the bowl to do that again and again. And you want to do it in a timely manner, not take too long, but we also want to make sure that it's thoroughly mixed. So make sure that it is thoroughly mixed by rubbing it against the sides of the bowls. And you will see that it's starting to smooth out, and that's when we know that it's ready. So we go ahead, and for the mandibular, you want to place it first in the front facial area, and then you will go to the second facial area. And we want to do this so that we don't have any bubbles once we pour up this mixture, or for whatever use that we are using the impression for. So we don't want any bubbles. And then we are going to smooth it over with a bit of water. And then we are putting some alginate on her occlusal surfaces, and you can also put it on the front of her facial teeth as well. And then now we are placing in the tray. We want to make sure that it covers her back molars and sits properly in her anterior surfaces. And her tongue is touching the roof of her mouth, and that can help with the patient's gagging. So here we have Jillian putting her fingers against the occlusal surface while it is setting, and we want to make sure that it's set all the way before we remove it. So now we are testing to make sure that it's set, And then now we are going to be removing it, and it is gone. And we have, our patient has a paper towel to wipe her face, and there is no green spots, which is great, which means that it was a great impression, and Jillian did a great job. So now we are going to rinse off our impression, and then we are going to place our spray on there, and we use the bleaching spray to just get rid of any of the bacteria from the patient's mouth. And we do that, and then we wrap it in wet paper towels to make sure that it stays wet so that it doesn't dry up and that it's still useful. So we make sure that everything's wet, and we wrap it together, and we place it in the headrest cover while we are doing our next impression. So here we have our model Christina holding the bag for us, and now we're on to our second impression. So here we have the 3 scoop line for 1 bag of alginate. Now we are spraying our adhesion spray on our maxillary tray. We first poured in the water, now we are pouring in our alginate powder. So now we are doing the second attempt on our second impression. So now we are mixing and rubbing against the sides of the bowl, so to get a homogeneous mixture. And we're doing this over and over again and quickly. So now it looks pretty smooth. So this is the consistency that we want to see. And now for the maxillary tray, we place it from the posterior side, but you of course want to put in the alginate on her occlusal surfaces, and the front of her teeth. And we would want to go from posterior, ideally, so that we don't have any bubbles. And we place it over the entire tray and smooth it out. And you can use water again to smooth out the alginate so that it is flat. And we do this to make sure that we have an even impression. And here we have Jill smoothing it out, and now we are placing it into the mouth, and Courtney can put her tongue to the roof of her mouth so that she doesn't gag and it is more comfortable while the alginate is setting. So Jillian is going behind Courtney and holding it at the bottom under her occlusal surfaces, so to make sure that it is an even impression and that all of the sides are thoroughly held. So now while she is holding it, she's going to be feeling to make sure that the setting is complete. We don't want to remove it too early because then we won't have a good impression. And Courtney is a great patient and she's having fun. So now we're going to be removing it, and we want to hear that little section be taken off while we have it. And there you go. It's a great impression. Everything was done thoroughly and it looks great. So now we're going to do the same process again. We are going to rinse off the impression, and we are going to use our disinfectant spray and spray it. Then we are going to wrap it in a wet paper towel to make sure that it stays moist before we pour it up. And so now we are placing it into the bag, and here is the clinician and patient, very happy. And now she's all good to go. She can get her materials, and this is about a 2 to 5 minute process for the working time. And overall, we want to make sure that we have a good impression without bubbles and that we got all the surfaces of the teeth even. So here's Courtney. She's very happy with her impression, and she had a great experience. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope this will help you in the future with taking alternate impressions. And this is our group picture. We have Courtney, Jill, Christina, me, Alexandria Gomez, and Chris. And there we go. That's how you take an alternate impression.